Welcome to the Live United podcast. I'm Lauren Teague Collins, Director of Marketing and Communications with Tulsa Area United Way. Today's episode is especially meaningful. We're talking about hope, recovery, and the ripple effect of support. You'll hear from people whose lives have been changed by community resources and from those who now dedicate their work to helping others find that same path forward. I'm joined by three incredible women: Michelle Thomas, Senior Manager of Community Relations at Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Oklahoma; her sister Melissa, Tulsa County Alternative Court Programs; and another Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Oklahoma employee, Monica, who is a customer service advocate there. Ladies, welcome. Thank you all for being here today. Okay, so let's start with introductions. Michelle, will you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Thank you, Lauren. So like you said, my name is Michelle Thomas. I'm the Senior Manager of Community Relations at Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Oklahoma. I've worked for Blue Cross and Blue Shield for about two and a half years, but I've had the opportunity to work in the community relations, corporate giving space for well over a decade. Before Blue Cross, I was at One Oak, and then before that, T.D. Williamson, and I actually started my career in the nonprofit space. I worked for the Salvation Army as volunteer coordinator, so shout out to one of our Tulsa Area United Way partner agencies. And through this work, I've had the opportunity to meet with a lot of different organizations and understand the landscape of our social service agencies and really build partnerships with organizations, get to know their leaders, their work, how their work kind of overlaps, and how that collective impact really helps build our work in the community. And so I actually serve on a couple different nonprofit boards. I serve on the Food Bank of Eastern Oklahoma board, a board for emergency infant services, as well as YWCA Tulsa. A shout out to another Tulsa Area United Way partner agency. And I would say, I've just had a heart for service since I was young, and I've always wanted to volunteer or give back. My parents, both my dad taught us about giving, and my mom taught us about serving. I tell people often that when I was in elementary and middle school, my mom was on her workplace campaign, and I thought committee, and I would tell my friends that I was on the United Way committee. So I've been connected to United Way for a long time. I have a heart for United Way, and I actually serve on the Women United Committee as well. So a lot of different opportunities to give back, and just really grateful to be here today. So thank you again for inviting us to be here.
Yes, thank you so much for being here. So many United Way partners you just mentioned. So just goes to show you, how deeply ingrained United Way is in the community, and how, being involved with any of those partners really connects you to that network of service that you were mentioning. Mm-hmm. Melissa, you, were of course impacted by the ethos and that commitment to service that Michelle mentioned that you all had growing up in your family. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and just your powerful story of transformation and service, and just share a little bit about your journey today?
Yes, thank you for having me. My name is Melissa Casey. I am a supervision case manager with the Tulsa County Alternative Court Programs. My story starts really early in my adulthood. I was involved in some really abusive relationships, and had some major medical conditions going on. I got addicted to painkillers, and that quickly moved to harder street drugs. I ended up getting arrested on a felony charge, and was given the opportunity to participate in the Women in Recovery program. In this program, I learned, coping skills and tools and skills necessary to be successful in life. It's about a 2-year program. I successfully graduated that program, and I lived a pretty normal life after that. I did not get connected to any kind of community after that, so I kind of felt, just like I was, surrounded by people who didn't really know what I had been through and what I needed in order to be successful. I did sustain a pretty normal life for a while. Several years later, my father passed away, and that night I turned to drugs for comfort through that time. That sent me spiraling down on that path again. And a couple of years after that, I got arrested on another felony charge. This was in 2020. Thankfully, I was given the opportunity to participate in Women in Recovery again. And this time I really focused my time there on what I needed to do in order to connect with a community of people who understood what I had been through and what I needed in order to remain successful, not only in the program, but also in my life moving forward. And I really think that I got that strong connection to, people, like I said, people who understand and also have been through what I've been through. Um, right after graduation from Women in Recovery, the second time, I was given the opportunity to start working for Family and Children Services. And I came on as a peer recovery support specialist, using my lived experience to, kind of give hope to people who are experiencing similar things than I was. I joined the alternative courts team at Family and Children Services, and I worked there for a few years and was actually presented with an opportunity to come to the county and work for Tulsa County Alternative Court programs, which is, drug court, mental health court, veterans treatment court programs, things like that. And it's really the demographic that drives my work. Like I participated in a program very similar to the ones that they're in, and just being able to, as they're walking in the door, scared and ashamed, full of guilt, just say like, "Hey, I've been there, and you won't feel like this forever. Things do change." And um, so that's what I do now, and I love my work.
Let's talk a little bit more about Women in Recovery really briefly. I've actually been fortunate to go to some of the graduation ceremonies.
Mhm.
They're incredible. But can you tell us just a little bit more about that program and how it's connected to Family and Children Services?
Yes. So Women in Recovery is a program within Family and Children Services. It's part of the Women's Justice Team program, and it's a intensive therapeutic addiction recovery program. It takes 18 to 24 months to complete. During that time, you have random UAs. You're on for the first 4 to 6 months. You're on a ankle monitor. You have, I think, it's like 220 or something like that hours of therapy and group classes, and they really just drive like, what is it that caused what you've been through, or what was the driving factor in what had you turn to drugs, or whatever the case may be, and how can we give you the tools necessary to overcome that and move forward from that in your life and not have to go back. They have a lifelong aftercare program. So anytime you may need something, or, if it's, I myself am still connected to the aftercare program. I do therapy once a month. If at any time I need to increase that, the services are there for me free of cost, no matter if have private insurance, if I have no insurance, or what that looks like. They look at what you could possibly need and do anything possible to fill that need.
And that leads me to Monica. Monica, your journey started with a call to 211 Eastern Oklahoma. It really reminds me how one call can change everything. So tell us a little bit about yourself and what led you to call 211.
My name is Monica, and I work for Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Oklahoma, doing customer service and pharmacy calls, helping members every day try to have peace of mind and navigate this healthcare system. I started out, well, I was married for 17 years and I got a divorce, and that kind of the same thing made me turn to drugs. I didn't really have much support, family wise. And so I was on that journey for a while. While I was on drugs, after my divorce, I became homeless. And so that was a big struggle. I called 211 for many resources during that time. But probably the best one that I ever experienced with them was they got me hooked up with Family and Children's Services. And I've been a client with them ever since. They've helped me with therapy and medications. And so then I went to Laureate for a while and decided to go to 12 and 12. And I've been clean ever since. I didn't complete that program because of COVID. It was right when COVID happened. And so everybody there was getting COVID. But so I did leave. However, I continued to stay clean. It's been about 6 years. And I started working with Blue Cross and Blue Shield. And 211 has been a big support, as well as Family and Children's Services and my employees at Blue Cross and Blue Shield. So.
Yeah. When you first heard about 211, what did you hear? What encouraged you to call 211? Did somebody hand you a flyer on the street? Did somebody just tell you about it? How did you hear about 211 for the first time before you called?
Yeah, I believe I was at a resource downtown, probably the Salvation Army, because I went through a step program there, and they turned me on to 211, and I would call them for shelter, for food, legal services, because I did get in trouble for drugs as well. Just everything from for basic needs to, having you meet up with a wonderful organization that can help you, or different things like that.
So for our listeners who may not know, 211 Eastern Oklahoma is the largest vetted database of assistant resources in the 37 counties in Eastern Oklahoma. So it's one call that we say can connect you to help and hope. And in your case, it sounds like, when we first heard your story, Monica, you said 211 gave me hope when I didn't have much.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's just, again, a testament to 211 being that source of help and hope. So I'm so glad that it could offer you that.
Yes. Thank you for having me.
Of course. So let's kind of go into a little bit more conversation here. I'll come back to you, Michelle. You've spent, as you said, more than 15 years in corporate community relations, long before Melissa's recovery journey began. But you mentioned off air that, watching her rebuild her life and work so hard kind of changed the way you see your work. So can you share a little bit about that personal experience and how that's influenced the way you approach community engagement today?
Sure. Well, like I said, I grew up with a heart to want to give and serve. I remember my dad talking often about making sure that people have food. Like, whatever we do, people need to eat. And so that was something I could easily connect. Someone's hungry, you feed them. But when it comes to substance abuse, mental health, even domestic violence, even housing and homelessness, those issues are nuanced. There are a lot of different pieces that go into someone's journey. So back to, again, mental health and substance abuse. We have these unconscious biases that we don't even know we have, right? And so I honestly felt some sense of shame as Melissa was going through addiction. And I was kind of worried about how it impacted my career and the work that I was doing, again, unconsciously. And watching her go through recovery twice. Sorry, I'm almost crying. You have to cut the tears. Seeing the powerhouse that she is today, seeing how she has the courage to own her story and use it for good, it helps me to see all of these different social causes and social needs with through a different lens, to kind of unpack and deconstruct those stigmas. So at the same time she was walking through her journey, there were multiple different agencies, multiple different people doing the work to get her to the point where she was able to recover, right? There were funders giving, GKFF and other funders, of course, helping with the Women in Recovery program. And there were professionals looking at best practices across the nation to see how to build this program. So there were multiple people included in this work, right? And at the same time, I was attending conferences, funders meetings, learning, and they were sewing in me, and they didn't even know my sister was going through the program, right? I remember even seeing Mimi from Family and Children's Services at multiple meetings, knowing my sister is going through Women in Recovery. She didn't know me. She didn't know our story. And so as all those seeds were put into me and sowed into me, I was learning again that it's not something we have to be ashamed of. I said this, off air too, that mental health and substance abuse knows no zip code, knows no income bracket. And so I'm able to see Melissa's courage and see the way that she lives her story and uses her story to impact others and for the greater good. And now I brag about her. I'm like, yeah, my sister, she went through in recovery, and and she's doing all this work now, instead of being ashamed of that story. I'm proud. And so her journey, her work helps me to see people through a different lens as well. And I hate even saying that out loud, because it makes me feel icky to say, I know I've always had a heart for people, and I know I've always had a heart for service, but there were those unconscious biases that I didn't realize I had and that I had to deconstruct. And that helps me to see each human that is in need. We have no idea what their story is. We don't know what brought them to homelessness. We don't know what brought them to substance abuse. Each person has a story. And I think about even Monica, we had an agency fair to kick off our employee giving campaign this year, our United Way, our campaign. And there was a United Way table there. And of course, I know our United Way partners, and our organizational giving manager pulled me aside, and he's like, do you know Monica? She just shared her story. I'm like, I don't know Monica. But anyway, and so I had a chance to hear her story and how 211 impacted her life. And to think about that moment at our United Way kickoff, right? That she was able to share, and that led us to this moment today. To me, again, it just impacts my work even more, because whether it's, again, substance abuse and addiction, domestic violence, homelessness, hunger, or we have adults in our lives who have developmental disabilities. We have seniors in our lives who need needs. Or we are all touched by one of the Tulsa Area United Way sustainability partners. And it just, again, enriches the work that I do, and it helps put faces and people and stories to the work. I go back to my dad, wanting to make sure we take care of people and feed them. That will always be a part of my heart. That's why I'm on the board for the food bank, right? Like, hunger is important. But when you have faces and names and stories behind the work, it only enriches the work that we do, and humbles me to know the impact that I get to make. It's an honor, the work that I do. And I don't take that lightly. All of the people and agencies and work that had to be done to giving my sister back,
Michelle, you and I have worked together many times over the last few years, especially last year when Stephanie Grober was one of our tri-chairs for our Centennial fundraising campaign. And Stephanie is still the president of our board of directors, right? So lots of overlap there with Blue Cross and Blue Shield.
Yeah, and the Tulsa Area United Way is one of the oldest members of Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Oklahoma. One of our longest standing partnerships goes all the way back to 1942. And so it's just like you said, a full circle opportunity for us to be here today. What's really unique, I think, is I worked at One Oak and got to work with Pierce, of course. And then when I transitioned to Blue Cross and Blue Shield, I knew both Pierce and Stephanie were going to be tri-chairs. And then I've known Emeka for quite some time. Fun fact, his very first United Way presentation was when I worked at T.D. Williamson, one of my first opportunities to lead a campaign. And so, again, full circle. And like you said, we were out on the trail. I will say one of the most exciting parts of the campaign for me is that Stephanie made a goal to visit as many of the agencies as she could leading up to the campaign. And so we got to see the work of those agencies firsthand. We even saw all the overlap and how they were collaborating, and it really did impact our work, her work going into the campaign, right? So she could understand even more the funds. She's raising funds for these agencies and the work that they do. And so, again, I think it's full circle. And like I mentioned, knowing that Monica connected with the United Way during this year's campaign, there are just so many different connections and so many different intersections. And we're so grateful to partner with the Tulsa Area United Way, longstanding partnership, like I said, and many, many more years to come.
Even if you're someone who begins at a place of empathy, it has a way of deepening your empathy in a way that you don't expect.
Yeah.
And so I'm grateful to you for your role and for all of you here today. And I kind of want to turn to you, Melissa. As we've discussed, you've been on both sides of this story in that you've received support through Women in Recovery and Family and Children Services, but you're also serving others through the justice system, as you mentioned. So can you talk a little bit about what drives your work today?
Yes. So, really, the opportunity to turn everything that I used to look at that has happened in my life negatively into something that can help others. You know, everything that I've been through, that I've survived and overcome, is just another tool that I can use to, relate and meet other people on their level and, help guide and reassure them like that there is hope and that through hard work and dedication that, our lives can be better and restored. Families can be restored. You know, I lost custody of my children through my addiction before. I meet a lot of clients who are in the exact same situation, and just reassuring them that I've restored those relationships with my children and restored the relationship with my mom and my sister. And even though right now, your family may not talk to you, and this whole thing may look impossible, like it is doable, and these things can come back to you as long as you remain focused on like what you want to do and what you want out of your life.
Monica, let's come to you next. You described 211 as giving you hope when you were feeling hopeless. We mentioned that earlier. What would you say to someone listening or watching who might be in that same place now?
Just know that you're not alone, even if it feels like it. There are tons of resources in Tulsa, and 211 can point you in the right direction. For most of them, they didn't make me feel ashamed or, scared. They were very understanding. I've even called them crying before, and the lady talked me down when she was my therapist or something. So they're always very good. Even if you don't want to talk on the phone, you can text them and they will send you information through text. It's just, there's so many resources in Tulsa. There's no reason really not to take advantage of some and start with 211.
Yeah, I'm so glad you mentioned the kinds of help you asked 211 for too, because I think a lot of people think that it might just be for food assistance or one particular type of help. But like you said, you can text. There's also a website you can go and just put in your zip code and find, if it is a food pantry or whatever you might need near you, legal assistance, utility payment assistance, all sorts of things. So I guess one more question I would ask you about that is, what's one thing you wished people knew? Whether it's about 211 or, just your journey. We talked earlier about how you don't know what journey people have been on, right? So you might not know when you look around, you have a stable job today. You don't know, people might not know the journey that you've been on. So what's one thing you wished people knew?
That how you're feeling today is temporary, and just having a little faith in yourself and sometimes reaching out for that help, even though it's hard, can point you in the right direction and, make that change. So.
Is there anything else you want to share about the help that you got from Family and Children Services? You mentioned that you had some counseling support there. Was there any other particular resource that was really helpful to you along your journey?
COPES has been extremely well for me, especially during this time. My mom died this year, and some other people in my family kind of turned their backs on me. So Family and Children Services has been there. They've been my support. I had to call COPES. They did everything they could to come and assist me. And then they called me every day for like 2 weeks and came by my house like 3 times and got with my family and children's support team and the Live Well staff there and just kind of put their arms around me and, pulled me out of it and let me know that I'm not alone, even though I don't have a lot of family or friends to support me.
Well, thank you for being so brave. And thank you for sharing that. Anybody watching or listening, you're not alone. You can call 211. You can also call 988 for emergency mental health help. Thank you, Monica, for sharing how bravely you fought through that.
Thank you.
And I'm so glad that you were able to find that support. Michelle and Melissa, you've kind of had this full circle moment. We talked about this journey, but you're doing something really exciting together in support of family and children's services. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so we actually just came straight from our meeting to here. We are serving on the Brainiac Ball Committee, which is one of Family and Children's Services' signature fundraising events. And so we get to do that, help with the fundraising, planning the event, and working with other community members to raise awareness about the work of Family and Children's Services.
You know, we say at United Way, with 160 programs that we support at Tulsa Area United Way, there's so many ways to help. And, you know, whenever we're out in a community fundraising, we say that today you get to offer help, but tomorrow you might need you might be the person who needs help. And it's hard to see that many programs in the community and not see something that you or someone you know or someone you love in your family, a friend, might need support from. I know many of us and our staff have received services from our partners too. So it's just goes to show you that you really can give and get help when it comes to those partners. So one more question for you, Michelle and Melissa. What's one thing you wished people knew about your journeys?
Transparency is powerful. Like I said, I was afraid to open up for a long time. And now that I share my story, which is really most story, but it's our story, it's our family story, I've met so many people who feel that they can now open up to, and they can share their story. And it breaks down the stigma. It breaks down the power of the challenge. Instead of that thing holding power over us, now we hold the power. And again, I feel like it's just being honest about about our journey and sharing that story with others has helped me be better in my career, has helped me be better in my advocacy, has helped me be more have a greater understanding of what it means to be an advocate and a community leader. But also, then it gave me my sister back. I keep saying that, but it's true. Now she's my forever plus one. We get to go to events quite often in the community and learn about a lot of different agencies and work. And we get to share about that journey kind of organically quite often. So that'd be the first thing I'd say is transparency is power. But the other thing I would say is we all have something to give, whether that's money or volunteering, advocating, being an advocate, or direct services. We all play a part in living united, really, in making a difference in our community. And I like to say that collective action meets collective impact. And honestly, that's what I think of when I think of living united. That moment where collective action meets collective impact. And so I think that sometimes people are afraid to step out and give or serve because they're like, oh, what can I do? What do I have? What are my skills? But we all play a part in making a difference for the greater good in our community. So that would be the second thing. I broke the rule and gave two answers, but
that's okay. Melissa, what about you? What's something you wished people knew?
I would say that change is possible. No matter where you're at or what you're going through in life or how far you think you've gone from where you want to be, that there are people and agencies out there that can give you the support that you need to change. At one point in my life, I was looking at a very extensive prison sentence. That was my option. And then, like I said previously, I got the opportunity for women in recovery. And, never did I ever think that my life would be like it is today. I didn't think that I was worth it. I didn't think that it was possible. And through connection with these agencies, I was able to build a life beyond my wildest dreams. Mm-hmm. My sister and I travel together all the time. Like she said, we go to all these events together and we get to learn about the agencies and what's available for our community. And there's so much out there that can help someone get back on that path that they want to be on. change and find that hope for their future. And so, yeah, I would just say that change is possible.
That's wonderful. Okay, I have one more question for all of you. It's the same question. Before we wrap up, we always ask all of our guests, why do you live united? So who wants to start? Michelle?
Sure. Well, like I said earlier, we all have a part to play in the greater good. I think there's no bigger picture, more vivid picture of what it means to live united than the current SNAP funding challenge that we're facing right now. No one person or agency could fully support the need that's in our state right now. That people are coming together. Companies are giving. The food banks are doing their work. HFO, Hunger Free Oklahoma, is advocating for the work. Churches and small groups and teams are coming together to do food drives. And we're volunteering and giving our time. And we're wrapping our arms around our community to serve and to give and to provide for our neighbors. And personally, like I said, there were so many agencies and individuals that came together to support my sister through her recovery and teach me so many different pieces of the mental health and substance abuse space. So I've seen it firsthand, what it means to live united. I've seen the work of the United Way. At Blue Cross and Blue Shield, we believe in collective action and community to provide access to healthcare, to provide opportunity for people. That's why we have a long-standing partnership with the Tulsa Area United Way. We have so many of the same values, and we see what it means when we're working together with each other to do our part to meet the needs of those around us. And again, I've seen that firsthand in so many ways. And so how could I not live united? How could I not partner with the people around me to make that impact when I've seen it worked over and over and over again?
Okay, Melissa, why do you live united?
So being able to connect people to resources or just be a listening ear for them, it drives the greater good, right? Just being able to be there for individuals in our community and agencies in our community who serve the needs of others is just very powerful and impactful. And not only does it help them, it helps me to learn and grow and to remain connected and not forget where I came from too. And I think that's, probably the main reason, yes.
Monica, you've got the last word on this one. Why do you live united?
Well, I feel like if more people would just help out where it needs to be helped, do what needs to be done, even if it's just having a smile on their face, giving a small compliment, listening, like you said, you never know what people are going through. And I feel like that collectively we can, reach more people and help out more because, two heads are always better than one. So
Well said. Well said. Well, thank you all for sharing your stories and for the work you do every day to make our community stronger. Thank you to everyone listening and watching for joining us too. I was struck by this. One of my favorite songwriters had a great quote, and he said, cynicism doesn't ask much of us, but hope really demands a lot of us. And every little thing you do in the face of cynicism is a blow to that cynicism that, really helps that hope grow. And so I feel like hearing your stories today, everything you're doing is one of those a way that hope can shine a little bit brighter every day. So thank you, all of you, for sharing your stories. And if you'd like to learn more about 211 Eastern Oklahoma, Tulsa Area United Way, Family and Children's Services, or any other of our United Way nonprofit partners, please visit tauw.org to learn more. And until next time, I'm Lauren Teague Collins, and this has been Live United.